guys, Amy and Samir here. It is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. Hello, Samir. How you
Hello.
doing?
It's lunch break time. Having a delightful lunch break.
At 3:30 in the afternoon.
I save my lunch breaks for later. Because it's usually slower later in the day, so it's not like I'll be interrupted by like some urgent thing that I have to do and have to stop having a break. So I'm like, this is the time when I know I can safely have an uninterrupted block of time for a lunch break. So it works out every day just perfectly.
Good. I'm getting this shared here to the other groups. Hope everyone's having a good Tuesday. We will be talking about director Gina Prince-Bythewood. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And she's a screenwriter, director, producer, one to watch. She's already made quite a few things, but still one to watch as her projects get bigger. But before that, yesterday we talked about Denzel Washington, Mr. Denzel, and the Hurricane, the one that we all agree he should have won Best Actor for. Hello, Andres. Happy Tuesday.
Hello.
Yes. Yes. Weekend's over. We're here. Yeah, I watched this with my parents, and my mom afterwards, she was like, well, he was robbed.
Yes, he was. I'm wondering.
I like American Beauty. I like Kevin Spacey in that movie. Even though Kevin Spacey has become a very problematic person, I still think he's a good actor. But this role is just so much more complex and like has so much more depth, and it's heartbreaking. This role is just, he's so fantastic in this. Yeah,
it is an amazing performance. I'm wondering if the reason he didn't win was partly, I don't know if I would say political, but maybe related to the controversy around the fictionalizing of parts of the story to make the character more sympathetic. Because there was some talk, apparently there's one part in the movie, I remember the boxing match where everyone's like, he totally won that match. I can't believe that they said this other person won. Well, apparently that's a real person that he fought against. And that real person is like, no, I won that fight. Like, everybody who watched the fight knows I won the fight. Your movie is misrepresenting that fight and damaging my character. So he sued them, and they had to settle out of court because they could not they actually did not want to litigate it in court because they would have then had to bring out all these other facts, which apparently made so there was things like that. And then of course there were other things where the main characters, some of his actions were actually turned into something totally different to make him seem sympathetic. And I'm like, you didn't have to do any of that. Like, this story is so rich that it seemed unnecessary to do any of that to begin with. But when those facts came out, there was a lot of high profile press coverage of the inaccuracies and the things. Like, it's like, but we always expect that in certain biopics, certain characters are maybe lumped into one. So maybe there wasn't just one evil cop or detective. There was like six evil detectives, and they represent it with one. And there maybe it wasn't just one single prison guard who was sympathetic and treated him like a human being. Maybe there was a few, but the easiest way to get that across was in this one character, because you're making a film that you can't make 7 hours long. Like, there was some of the criticisms I don't totally agree with. One was when he stabs that guy who was attacking him as a little boy. Apparently that never happened. That was an armed robbery in which the character was caught, and had nothing. He was not molested. He was never molested or assaulted by an adult with that purpose. That was like a totally made up story they put in the movie but the real story was that the character had actually stabbed someone and robbed him. So it was there's things like that, but I'm like, I feel like the overarching story is one that is so important and reflects a reality for many people of color who get abused by the justice system, that I think it was really unfair for them to consider that. I feel like that kind of stuff maybe seeped into their brains, and I don't think it was fair. that it did,
Yeah,
because this performance and the story are so strong, regardless of those inaccuracies. And I think reflects an actual reality that so many people live with, that I don't know that it was fair to bring this movie down on those terms. Maybe, I wasn't the daughter of one of the victims, because one of them was one of the people who complained, so I can't speak for them. But in terms of watching this movie, I felt like this movie was, honest in all the important ways. And this performance was so monumental. Like the first second he's on screen, you were so completely drawn into this story. Like 1 second of seeing him as a boxer in that ring, and I was like, I believed he was that character. It took just his presence, and he knew how to inhabit that character so well that the first shot of him instantly is like, it gets you. And I was completely hooked. It was 2.5 hours long. That whole 2.5 hours flew by.
It kind of did. Yeah. There are definitely some movies we pick that are older, or not older, longer, where I'm like, okay, this does seem like a little long, even though I'm still enjoying it. But this one, this did not seem like it was 2.5 hours long. It sounds like it is interesting that they said right at the beginning of the movie, it said, now whether they add that in the theatrical release of that movie or maybe after the fact, of saying like, this has been dramatized and some characters and events have been changed for the purpose of this being a film. But yeah, it is interesting though that they chose to add or take away some things, because it's like, that's still like the point was like, okay, even if he did some things when he was younger, he didn't do this one that he's in prison for like 4.
Exactly. And one of the things, they also condensed 2 trials. There were 2 trials. So there's this part in the movie where they're talking about all these celebrities are involved and Ellen Burstyn is this and that, so that actually did happen. And then there was another trial, but the prosecution also, again, held back evidence and misrepresented other evidence and used false testimony to convict him again. But nobody else knew that that was like false testimony. They had used doctored reports, and they had held back other evidence that would have exonerated this person. So they deliberately cheated to convict him again. And so, but everyone outside that thought, oh my God, this was the real trial that we were fighting for. And then the facts still made him guilty. So then everybody abandoned him. So there's that part in the story too, but they kind of condensed that into sort of like one trial moment before the end. But again, that's just like something I think that's kind of normal when you're making a feature film and you're not making like a show us style documentary that's 9 hours long. But exactly, Walter, that's the exact point. Any two will exactly because that scene is so it's still was so heartbreaking for me, because the young man who's just totally shaking, and there's Denzel Washington still keeping his cool through all of it, despite all of that happening, you don't see even a discernible increase in tension in his face, but he knows exactly what's happening.
Yeah, that's something I really enjoyed about his performance, was that constraint that he had in so many of these scenes as that character. And, that wasn't in the whole movie. There were scenes where he broke down. But also, I think it was the first trial, the judge said something like, you have been tried by your peers, and he just kind of glances over, and we get to this all white jury of women sitting there with their little purses and stuff, and it's just that one look is just killer. No pun intended, because he was being tried for murder. But it's, I don't know, it was a fantastic film. It had so many tender moments, a whole thing. I'm assuming the story with the boy who writes to him, I'm assuming maybe that is true, just because they include that at the end with this is now this kid actually is, he grew up, and he's practicing law. He did become a lawyer. There were so many moments with their relationship that was so nice, and I don't know. This movie has a lot of tender moments in it.
I liked the highlight of how writing and literature were a savior to him, and that no matter where you are or what's holding you back, the act of actually committing yourself to paper, of writing your thoughts down, of reading the works of others will free you from any prison mentally. It can free you from all those things. And so he's like really encouraging him to pursue that. I just like that little speech that he gave. That was one of the things that saved him. So it made sense, earlier when he's like, I don't care what they do to the cell. I don't want to lose this manuscript. I can't lose this. If they had, we wouldn't have had this film. He probably still would be in prison. But the movie's based on his autobiography that he wrote, as well as a book written by those Canadians, who apparently were actually a really weird commune that both the young kid and the hurricane left. Apparently, the hurricane married that woman. He marries that woman. After the story, he married her, and then they got divorced. And he was like, okay, these people were actually really weird. They tried to control what we could say and do and where we could go. And we were like, gotta go. Which he did. But he still, thanked them. He still, realizes and acknowledges their role in, helping him to become a free man again. But that was another weird side effect, because it did seem a little odd to me, why these people out of nowhere just suddenly were so devoted, and there was never really any exploration of exactly what compels them to do this or how they became, so they used to grow up as magic angels.
Really nice.
And it turns out they did have a commune that they wanted people to join. That was the one part of the movie that I think only really stuck out, was I don't understand exactly what's going on with these people. And they're being very shy about it in the film. They're really not, they don't even want to dig even a little bit. They're just whatever, they're really cool people and they helped. And that's all you need to know.
That's all we need to know for this film. But if you didn't see The Hurricane, this is available right now on HBO Max. So please give it a watch if you haven't seen it. Just great performance.
It's a great performance. Yeah. It's unimaginable when I watch it. I'm like, I don't understand how anybody who's voting on acting could have not seen that this was obviously the superior performance of the year by an actor.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I remember from years and years ago, that Oscars, I was 10, 11. I remember his Oscar clip from this movie. I will always remember what they showed during that ceremony. And that was something years later made me want to watch this film. The first time I watched it, I was I think I have that. I want to say that's the one. I randomly had that particular Academy Awards taped or something, my grandma taped it or something. And so I would watch it because that's what I do. And I remember just thinking that clip alone really made me want to watch this film for the first time. And I will always, And then it got to that moment in the film again. I was like, it's great. Anyway, please watch this movie. So good. So good. And of course, check out his other, we talked about his, now I don't think I've seen Antoine Fisher yet. Yeah. So that was his first film as a director. We talked about how he's directed a few films. Fences was one that we picked a while back when we talked about Viola Davis and her Oscar-winning performance. And that should have been a Best Actress nomination.
Yes.
That's another issue we have.
Yes.
But maybe she'll get nominated this year for, why do I forget the name every single time? It's Ma Rainey. Is that it?
Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Yes. Ma Rainey. I don't know why I keep forgetting that name. It's
okay.
Getting distracted with the comments. Okay, so let's talk about today's director, the lovely Gina Prince-Bythewood. I couldn't find a whole lot of info about her. But she's someone, I think you could find more about her if you just look her up under recent articles that have been written about her versus her Wikipedia and IMDb page, which is my go-to. But she was born in LA, June 10th, 1969. She actually was adopted when she was 3 weeks old. She was adopted by her father was white, her mother was Salvadorian and German, which is a fun combo.
Oh,
And she grew up in a white middle class neighborhood in Pacific Grove, and she has some siblings through that family. She later, kind of more recently, like even the last few years, found her birth mother and had said that that was like not a good experience connecting with her. Her birth mother's white, her birth father was black, and basically her birth mother's family, I don't know, it was kind of like because they knew that this was going to be a mixed race baby, kind of gave her the choice of like, okay, adoption or abortion. Um, yeah, so she was like, cool, well, great connecting with you, mom.
right.
Yeah,
I didn't know you and your family were a bunch of racist pieces of trash, but goodbye.
yeah, yeah. Um, she eventually got into UCLA's film school in college, which if anyone has tried to apply or try to get into
Very
that,
prestigious accomplishment.
yeah, I didn't get in. I was devastated. It's
Well,
very
I
hard to
think
get
of
in.
also the filmmakers that have gone there. The many world-renowned filmmakers have graduated from that film school. And it was always the kind of like the more artistic of the film schools. USC was sort of more studio, traditional construction oriented, and UCLA had more of the real artists going to school there. So she picked a good one.
Yeah, yeah, and she graduated from there and pretty much immediately started writing for a few TV shows such as A Different World and South Central. Her first film that she wrote was Love and Basketball, which is a film that we picked. A lot of that is based on her own experiences in life. Um, yeah, but she's gone on to direct a lot of really great things. Another one of her films that I have seen, and we almost had picked that one, but we decided to still go with Love and Basketball. But The Secret Life of Bees, I really like that film. That's based on the book The Secret Life of Bees and has a great, great cast. She also, let's look at some of the other things she's done. Her most recent thing that she was working on with writing was Shots Fired, which is a TV show. Um, her most recent feature film that came out was The Old Guard, which came out on Netflix this last summer. And that's like this
Huh.
crazy action film with Charlize Theron. I was reading about how the movie itself is like, I don't know. It's okay. It's a solid action film. But I read this little article today talking about how that movie in itself was kind of groundbreaking. It was like even in 2020, it's like this is this big budget action movie with a black female director. The two main leads in it are women, Charlize Theron, and then another actress in it who is black, and then the other two men that are involved in this group, the guard, they're both gay. They're like in love with each other. So
Oh,
yeah, very very interesting. I don't know, they were talking about like even by 2020 standards, it was like this is groundbreaking. um, yeah, she did not write that film, but she did direct it. And she does have some other things coming up. Her next film she's going to be doing is something called The Woman King, which is about an all-female military unit.
ooh,
So that'll be kind of fun too. Not even kind of fun. That'll be very fun.
I want
Uh,
to see that.
yeah, so that's in pre-production right now. She is married, and she and her husband are co-producers on a lot of things, and they have two kids together. I'm assuming she kind of had a little bit of a break in her in the early 2000s. I'm assuming she was probably raising her kids.
Probably.
Mom. Yeah, but she has a lot of fun things coming out. Yeah, she had a big gap between The Secret Life of Bees and Beyond the Lights is another film that she's done. Um, yeah, but
She's
she's
been
definitely,
pretty consistent, not
yeah,
like
she seems like
despite that
someone
one break,
who,
there's been a film every few years from her.
yeah, I think she's someone who, picks her next projects carefully. Yeah, she was supposed to be, as Luke was saying over here, she was supposed to be directing a Spider-Man spinoff, and that was going to be a big deal. It looks like Sony ended up canceling that film. But that was just a few years ago. But that was I read this article earlier about like she was going to be the first Black woman to direct a Marvel movie. So hopefully she'll get another chance to do that at some point.
I'm sure she will. She's going to be a producer. Maybe she's moving into producer, just being a producer. So far, it seems like she's got a pretty good eye for material. You know, like this first movie of hers, I remember the critics really responding to it. It got a lot of press. It was written up, like it got a review in almost every major paper, like a featured review. Which is pretty impressive because, you know, from, you know, having no films at all to having a movie that suddenly a lot of people were paying attention to right away is it's not easy to get that much attention with your first movie.
Yeah, I believe this film got into Sundance and I think was also produced by Spike Lee. I think Spike Lee helped produce this film, so I'm sure his name being on this too was a really big.
That's probably why. Also why. And Walter, I do know about Freddie Washington. Actually, that would be a very interesting story to cover one day. In the first version of Imitation of Life, and it is a great story. But I do know it. They actually have that version on the Criterion app too. The first version of Imitation of Life that has Freddie Washington and Louise Beavers. That movie is it's under the John Stahl collection. It is unfortunately a tad more racist, but it also has other, you know, really amazing things in it too, including the performance of Freddie Washington. But yes, that's somebody that we should talk about someday.
So Love and Basketball came out in 2000, again, based on some of her own experiences. Monica and Quincy love and play basketball together through many life challenges from childhood to adulthood.
It's a very thin description, so it must be more of like a...
Big.
I guess, you know, that she's not trying to break the mold necessarily on the romance or the coming of age film necessarily, but she's just trying to tell it honestly from a perspective that isn't represented very much. And probably there are not a lot of, I don't know how many movies, coming of age dramas or love stories really made it into mainstream appeal when it had people of color in them, because people still sort of like, there's still almost like a divide with some of these movies where it's like, oh, that's a movie that doesn't reflect my life, so I don't have to feel bad about not watching it, which is the worst argument ever for how you choose to watch what movie. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure the Transformers doesn't relate to your life at all in any way either, but you still went to see that. So, but this movie, I remember just being marketed as like a new coming of age drama. It wasn't marketed only to one demographic. I felt like I saw commercials and trailers for this on a lot of channels. There was a lot of effort to make sure that this movie got out to audiences, but I don't remember how much money it made, if it did like really well at the box office or not. But I've always remembered this. I've always remembered this poster. This image for some reason always stuck out to me too. Maybe because I also worked at Borders when this movie came out on DVD, so I was also responsible for displaying it. So I saw the cover a lot.
This had a big budget for someone's first film. This had a $20 million estimated budget, and it made $27,728,000. So it made money, but I wouldn't say a box office smash. Yeah, and I think I mentioned earlier, I think this got into Sundance.
I think you did say that, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the other poster for this, definitely shows them both kissing and holding up the basketball, which is a really cool poster. I couldn't find that in a higher definition, so poster.
Fine.
I just wanted it to be crisp, okay?
Whatever.
But I really don't know a lot about this movie. I think this is one that I have always heard of but haven't seen. So I'm looking forward to watching this. This movie is available on Hulu again. So we have another.
It's been pretty good to us this month.
It has, yeah. So far, not as many movies that we have to rent. That will change.
That will change. Sorry.
It is available on Hulu, so please give this a watch. This was a great combo of both highlighting Black History Month and our Valentine's Romance Month.
And female directors.
Yes, it's a triple threat.
So I hope everybody watches it. This will be the first time I'm seeing it. So we'll have a totally fresh take on it. We'll both have something, totally new to say tomorrow about something we've never actually seen. I read all the reviews of the movie, but I also was where was it? Yeah, I remember working at Borders when this came out on DVD, but when it actually came out in theaters, I did not have a job. So, and so maybe that's why I didn't go to the theater as much that year. But I do remember following this movie's success at the time. So it's weird to have it been so long between being interested in a movie and then actually watching it. This has got to be a record for me. So I'm sorry it took this long, everybody, but I'm fixing that tonight.
Yes. And again, this is on Hulu. So please watch it and then join us tomorrow as we discuss our thoughts after the movie. Tomorrow, we are talking about another Oscar-winning actress, Miss Whoopi Goldberg.
Yay!
We are not talking about Sister Act.
Easy as it would have been to, we did not.
Yes. Tomorrow is one of our Patreon picks. This movie, the movie we'll be watching is The Color Purple. So buckle up for that one if you haven't seen it. But that was a film that one of our Patreons, Crystal, who I don't know if she's watching. I don't think she's watching today. She usually says hi. But she picked that film. That was one of many great choices that she gave us to talk about. Yeah, but
and Walter's got stories.
Of course, he's got stories. Of course, he's got stories.
Please come prepared with the stories tomorrow.
Stories tomorrow.
We'll make some extra time for Whoopi.
Yes. We're really excited to talk about her. She's amazing, and I don't know anyone who doesn't like Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, if you don't like Whoopi Goldberg, you don't have a soul. Okay.
Right? Get out of here.
Yeah, but please watch Love and Basketball and join us tomorrow for a discussion, and then going into our Whoopi Goldberg spiel. But again, available on Hulu. If you would like to contribute to our Patreon and pick a movie with some of our tiers, I put the link in the bio. Not bio. It is in our bio for some
comments.
Over here in the comments. Yeah. If you follow us on Instagram, it's in the bio, I think. No.
Yes.
I think I have our YouTube or my YouTube channel in the bio. Anywho, watch it. See you guys tomorrow. I'm going to drink more caffeine. And thank you guys for watching.